Global urgency on sustainable solutions, digitally connected infrastructure, and rapidly advancing novel technologies has ushered aerospace into an exciting period of innovation, arguably not experienced since the dawn of aviation. Join us as we explore today's dynamic industry with distinguished visionaries, changemakers, policy creators, and the innovative ideas that are cultivating new frontiers across aviation, space, and defense. This is Wheels Up, the future of flight, with Alex Ramirez.
Welcome to our latest episode of Wheels Up, Future of Flight. I'm your host, Alex Ramirez, President, Collinear Group. It's an incredible time in aviation, space, and defense as the industry reimagines itself with new and novel technologies in areas like sustainable aviation, advanced air mobility, and commercial space travel. After 4 years, commercial passenger air travel has finally surpassed 2019 pre-pandemic levels. However, capacity constraints and post-pandemic public expectations are forcing airlines to rethink their operations and passenger experience strategies. From technical operations to ensuring passenger safety, innovation and technology is shifting the way airlines, airports, and aviation authorities operate. This ongoing integration of novel technologies is poised to reshape the aviation ecosystem, ushering in a new era of connectivity, efficiency, and operation-centric services. Today, we're joined by Mark Lebovitz, founder and CEO of L2 Aviation, a company focused on filling the void between OEMs and aircraft owners, operators, when addressing avionic upgrades and system integration requirements in both commercial and military aircraft. Filling the void between existing systems and operational aircraft and the implementation of new technologies is a significant challenge, as configurations can vary widely throughout aircraft fleets. As a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin School of Engineering, Mark and his L2 Aviation team have steadily gained valuable experience servicing the needs of aircraft operators by integrating the newest technologies to existing systems for avionic providers of the day. Welcome, Mark. Excited to have you.
Great to be here, Alex. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. I really enjoyed your thought leadership in the industry, a trusted advisor. It's something that I am very grateful to be a part of, small part of.
Well, likewise, appreciate you being here and sharing some of your thought leadership. So can you share a little bit about your personal journey in founding L2 Aviation? Kind of what sparked your passion for the industry?
Yeah, I was a stock boy. I was 19 years old, but it was a government furnished equipment with avionics stock boy. And I got to hang around all these aircraft. And I was a rising sophomore at school. They didn't let me touch the aircraft. I couldn't work on it. I couldn't provide any kind of cool advice on how to modify something, but I was around those people. And I began to realize pretty quickly that, I had the only key when I was on shift for getting to the different storerooms and where stuff was stored. So I got to meet a lot of people. I was involved with different conversations, and I just fell in love with aircraft. I wanted to modify it. They were working on electronic warfare systems for more on the training side. So they would configure these aircraft with all kinds of avionics just stored everywhere in this small X-fighter jet. I just loved it. And then when I started my first company, I really spent a lot of time on, business plans and just everything you could imagine other than focusing on the customer. Now, we were purchased by another company, and I spent another 5 years after being acquired. And that's where I began to realize, where the focus needed to be, which was really around what is the customer requirement, how to make things simple. I always tell people it takes a genius to take something complicated and make it simple. I'm not a genius, but I really began to focus in on what was the streamlined process. And, I guess I just did that from the very start. And then when I started L2 Aviation, I was really keen on the customer experience. And kind of as an aside, it took me 4 years to develop a logo for the second company, whereas the first company, that was what I thought you had to do first. Yeah. You had to get branding.
So, for those not familiar with L2 Aviation, can you give some insight into the type of projects that you're typically called upon?
We look at the technician as being our ultimate customer. They're touching the kits, they're looking at the design that we're doing. And so much of what we do in all our processes, we're an engineering company, we do certification, we have installation kits, of course, that puts all that design to work. and we have field teams that go out and do the installation itself. Now, we don't always have programs that are all three of those, we call them pillars, but we don't have all three of those pillars necessarily. But we're always focused on how to make things simple, easy to maintain. I saw a study once that said something like 10 times the cost to maintain the system it does take to install in the first place. And we're looking to really minimize that. But as far as projects go, we have a lot of interesting projects going on now, like Swift broadband safety. There's been a big push of smaller, lower power, more capable systems, and you still have to meet all the safety requirements. And as these systems are getting more and more capable, we're going to be able to remove older systems like HF. And there's dual dissimilar programs going on where if you have an Inmarsat SATCOM system and an Iridium system going on in parallel, now you've got two independent systems and you're going to be able to take off an HF system maybe permanently. And we're super active in those programs. We see a tremendous amount of capability. But I think the busiest thing is just connectivity. Everybody wants Wi-Fi at the back of the airplane. It is just passengers want it. The flight crew wants to be able to get their weather updates for the flight deck. So a lot of our systems and a lot of our efforts now is how do you put one system on, one pipe, so to speak, that goes off the aircraft, but yet have multiple domains within the aircraft. You've got the cockpit, the aircraft domain, you've got the information domain where you have like the operational airline requirements, and then you got passengers in the back. And if you have one system that's able to talk to all three of those groups, there's quite a bit of cybersecurity requirements, and we're really into that, very much so. But lastly, there's also a lot of up and coming OEMs, and I almost feel like it's a mission for us to really help these smaller manufacturers that don't have the big resources that everybody, that the company names you usually think about have all those resources internally. So we've been a lot more active in trying to help those people. And one example, when you asked the question that popped up, was Clatworks. They have a augmented reality. It's a head-up display that goes inside of an oxygen mask. And that system allows pilots, if there's cockpit smoke, they can still see. So other manufacturers have really cool head-up displays, but if there's smoke, they're useless. And I think able to help them with certification and make really easy to install kits and then field install it is something that we're quite proud of.
I got a question for you on that here in a minute, but before we get to that, you just mentioned connectivity, right? And seeing that as a trend. You just attended Aviation Week MRO Americas in Chicago. I was curious to get your perspective on trends that caught your attention that you're particularly excited about, you and the team, and what you're seeing and where you're seeing the industry go with all this innovation and technology that's happening.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
You got all the challenges of the shortage of people and parts and everything else. But where I thought was really nice, I just had a blast at the MRO. I can't remember having as much fun, but I think it was also partly because on the first day is the exhibitor only day.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but I just walked that whole facility watching everybody building their booths and talking to people with, they had screwdrivers and they were helping out to put stuff together and just kind of getting a feel of the industry. It was really upbeat. And even setting up meetings with people prior to the show, a lot of people were going, they all wanted to meet, they all wanted to talk, there was challenges and problems they wanted to solve. It was just a lot of fun. But the overall trend, it was really around, there's more demand than capacity.
Yeah.
There was years when, let's say whatever capacity level was comfortable for a company, there was always that little extra buffer there. That if something dropped in on a Friday or if an AOG came in, they could handle it. Maybe not easy, but they could do it. Now everybody's such at the limit of their capacity. or they're overcapacity. They can't even get done what they've already promised people to do. And yet now you have these drop-in requirements. And so we're talking to customers that may in the past not have even reached out to L2 because they had their internal capability or they had their own preferred suppliers. There's just it's a good time to be in the business if you could provide product, quickly. But there's also a lot of cool technologies when I walked around. A lot of AI solutions, data analytics, whether it's AI or not, cool tooling. There was all kinds of robotics where some companies have drones that fly and you could look for dents in the aircraft or look for other kind of damage. You don't have to have as many people wandering around, and when you have somebody that's flying a drone, it does all the analysis almost on the fly.
Yeah. So you just mentioned the buzzword of the last year, right? AI. And I saw it at MRO America myself. I mean, just AI talked about in a lot of panels and, big buzz. It continues to be a big buzz. And what is the art of the possible with the technology? Is there any particular use cases that you're seeing that have you particularly excited about in the L2 team on, art of the possibility of and what can we potentially expect here for uses of AI in the aftermarket space?
Well, there's really four areas, I guess, everybody's been talking about. You got predictive maintenance, optimized parts inventory, improve process type stuff, and compliance for the regulations. And, I think for us, it's really all around the predictive maintenance. And the reason why that excites us, I think, is that that's where we can really provide a value to the industry. We're going to be able to provide the connectivity back to what we're talking about. You have faster and faster speeds coming off the aircraft, so therefore you could get more data. It's not really clear to me yet how much of the processing for a lot of these AI and analytics will be done on the aircraft, or are they just going to send raw information off? There's parties doing both types of solutions. I just find that they need to be able to solve the capacity problem because the airlines themselves just don't have enough aircraft at the moment.
Yeah.
And so what do you do? And one way to handle that is you start putting aircraft in flight with a lot of analytics. In the past, it was all about quick access recorders or QARs, where the data was there and they were just looking for exceedances. On the predictive maintenance side, it's all around trying to predict maintenance. The challenge that I've been seeing in the industry is that taking a part off too early is not any better than taking it off too late. And when I say too late, I'm not saying an incident or crash. I'm just saying you take it off too late and you got a lot more repairs you're going to have to do on this part. But if aircraft are going to be efficient, you're going to have to figure out the perfect opportunity. And that's a lot of data. And so we're working with people to tap into more systems, get more information about the different components on the aircraft. And we're not in the AI itself yet, but there's a lot of other companies out there that do all that analysis.
Yeah.
But it also goes back to the other issue, which is now we're going to be tapping in, however we do it, into critical systems, connecting it to some sort of Wi-Fi router in some cases, and then transmitting this off the aircraft. So there's a lot of work that the team is doing to show on the cybersecurity side, both from an internal perspective and external, that we're not going to cause a safe or undue safe problem.
What do you see as the biggest barriers for innovation and technology for really making, a lot of this vision, future vision we're talking about now, a reality? What do you see as the biggest hurdle to overcome?
The general sense is that the aviation industry is risk averse. They don't want to do anything that's going to cause an unsafe condition. I mean, we all have to be safe first. And, innovation and speed is not synonymous with, aviation in general. Most of us are thinking about, slow and steady. And so, the barriers that we keep running into is when we talk about new and novel, to the FAA or to our customers, it just scares everybody. And yet that's what we need to be doing is we need to be new and novel. We need to be able to come up with really cool solutions, especially, with all the talk of advanced air mobility, because we're really going to have to move a lot quicker. And the advantage there is going to be a ton of aircraft to be able to do. But as far as your question goes, we're on the retrofit side. And, some of the challenges I keep seeing and hearing from our team is around sole source parts. And, in the old days, there was all these systems that were independent. So you had an avionics system that did a very unique thing. And you had AirInc and other standards that allowed you to know exactly what was going in and out of those aircraft. Now, so many of these aircraft and these systems being installed are proprietary, lots of IP, or they're just self-contained. There's no way that you could just add a new cool feature. It may take that OEM 4 or 5 years to address a customer request, whereas an aftermarket person could do it in a fraction of time. They may have already even done it. They just can't get it on the aircraft. And so we really see that as being a problem. We have to be very careful of infringing anybody's IP, but we can, they call it reverse engineering. There's different ways of calling it. But we'll have to go out onto an aircraft and figure out how do we interface this and do it safely. And one of the things that we've done, this was a little while ago, but we were doing a large display flight deck upgrade. So we bought big sections of the aircraft and put it into our facility here and crawled around it, reversed whatever we needed to do, and figured out, how to make the best installation. But a side point to that was very interesting is how much time we saved on the eventual installation on the aircraft, because we got to play. We got to try different ways of installing the different components. And by doing that, we refined it. If you get into an FAA program and you want to start making small, minor changes, it's very difficult. And if anything, it may slow the program down to a halt. So most people, if you meet the regulatory requirement, some companies will just stop because it meets the requirement. But for us, we're really focused on the customer requirements. What's the use case? And that is so much higher than the regulatory. So by getting those different mock pit type things that we have here, we're able to simulate. And I think that would be very helpful for us as we get into more new and novel situations.
Well, you just mentioned use cases. That's fascinating, by the way, Mark. And you also touched on, previous question, some of the capacity constraints. We all know we're seeing airlines are really struggling. Yeah. I think there's a lot made earlier this year about the impacts to operating schedules, right? A lot of airlines had to cut back on scheduling just because they can't get enough airplanes. So what are some of the key challenges you and the L2 team are seeing as a result industry-wide, and then how innovation and technologies is playing a part in solutions to this problem that we're seeing?
Yeah, I really feel for the airlines. It is so difficult. They have this whole plan. They plan in advance. They need the lift. They have networks, and they can't get the aircraft for whatever reason. So our help on some of those challenges is what can we do to keep the aircraft in the air more than otherwise? What kind of systems can we install? How to monitor to get more efficiency out of the aircraft so that it doesn't fly as long. When it is on the ground, it's more useful and you can get data off of it. But back to your point, the airlines, we're finding that they're starting to, where they were told us a couple of years ago, oh no, we're going to retire that fleet. So the STCs that you have, as great as they may be, we don't want them. We don't need them. We're going to retire it. And so we're starting to have those conversations now that they want us to dust off, so to speak. What can you do? Well, can we get another 5 or 7 years off this aircraft when we didn't think we would need it?
Right.
And these leasing companies, they'll lease out an aircraft. It goes to a tier 1. It's there for so long, and then it cycles out. And the airlines aren't going to invest a whole bunch of money in that aircraft if they're going to be at least returning it anytime soon. And it used to be they were just focused on the obsolete systems. It was if it was old, didn't break, they couldn't find replacements. Maybe they replace it. Now it's a lot about modernization, simplifying, reliability, how can they get more capacity? And even back to what we were talking about before, redundant systems. Who wants to carry around something that's heavier, takes power if you're not going to use it? But if you have redundant systems, you may have a situation where what would have been a turn back or a delayed flight or even a cancellation, maybe that doesn't happen now. And that, we talked about the whole buffer. The airlines don't have any extra buffer, just like the MRO facilities don't have that extra buffer. So we're doing what we can to help them.
Clearly talking a lot about, let's call it traditional commercial aviation and some of the challenges. But you touched on earlier, Mark, all these emergent new market segments like hydrogen, electrification, advanced air mobility. All of these are now starting to feel very real as far as the investment that's going in and the maturity of the technology in the market. What's your perspective on these various new markets that are popping up, and is L2 making any strategic investments, or how are you positioning yourself to support these emerging markets?
It's exciting times, and I think what's going to be interesting for everybody is I've seen some studies where it's like 500 million flights for drones per year in 2030, I think it was, and then maybe 750 million more for different types of passenger taxi type stuff, and that's really going to drive just a tremendous change in the industry, and I think it's going to help everybody, because going back to the conversation about the innovation, we're going to have all these really interesting solutions going in all these different advanced mobility type situations, and that's going to trickle up and down into all these different markets. And so I find like the detecting of other aircraft, we call it TCAS in the big air transport world, but the detect and avoid technology that the AM people are doing, it's just really interesting. I think that is going to help out on really cool projects. Like we're working with there's a program it's called Merlin Pilot. They have a system where they do the software where their short-term opportunities is to take it where it used to be 2 pilots, now it's 1 pilot, and then eventually on the smaller aircraft it'll be no pilots. But the amount of time it's going to take to prove all that is quite an effort. What excites me about all these smaller, almost drone type, quadcopter type technologies, whether they're delivering product or whatever, they're going to have a chance to really work out a lot of the details on what makes it safe. And I just think that innovation will be quite interesting to follow.
Right. This has been a fascinating discussion. I wish we could go on here forever, but for listeners that want to learn more about L2 or about yourself, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you or your team?
Well, our website is always a good place to start, l2aviation.com. I would love for people to follow us on LinkedIn. We put out a lot of content. We're going to put out more, maybe not as much as you, Alex, but we're going to be putting out a lot of cool stuff and trying to share more information. I'm also finding that our customers who before were kind of they didn't want to share. We couldn't talk about any of the programs we're doing. We still have that, but some of our customers are starting to say, yeah, this is an interesting time. We want to share, and it's okay. So follow us on LinkedIn and reach out anytime you like.
I look forward to following you, and you put out great content, Mark. So I look forward to learning more from your thought leadership and continuing these kind of conversations. So thank you again so much for joining us. Again, the work you and the L2 team are doing is impressive, and look forward to following your journey. And for everybody, thank you for joining us. Please join us for our next episode of Wheels Up, Future of Flight, as we explore today's dynamic industry with distinguished visionaries, change makers, policy creators, and the innovative ideas that are cultivating new frontiers across aviation, space, and defense. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. To capture all the latest from Wheels Up, Future of Flight, you can follow us on LinkedIn. Be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes or visit us at collineargroup.com.